I saved the Mafia boss's son before I knew his name, and by sunrise, the entire city would know mine. The rain had turned the school parking lot into a black mirror, cracked by yellow security lights and the red glow of my dashboard clock. 10:47 p.m. I should have been home an hour ago, warming canned soup for Sophie, checking her spelling homework, pretending I was not 2 missed paychecks away from losing our apartment. Instead, I sat behind the wheel of a half-empty school bus that smelled like wet jackets, pencil shavings, and the cheap coffee I had been drinking since 5 that morning. My name is Claire Whitman, 30 years old, single mother, part-time school bus driver, night shift waitress at Miller's Diner when my legs could still hold me up. I was not brave. I was tired. There is a difference. Brave people step into danger because they believe they can win. Tired mothers step into danger because a child is crying and nobody else is coming. I had just locked the bus doors when I heard it. 3 soft knocks. Not from outside. From somewhere near the far fence, where a black SUV sat crooked under a broken light. At first, I thought it was the rain hitting metal. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, weak, human. My hand tightened around my keys until the teeth cut half-moons into my palm. Every woman in America knows that feeling. The one that starts at the back of your neck and tells you to get in your car, lock the doors, and leave. I almost listened. God help me. I almost did. Then I heard a muffled sound from the trunk, a child trying not to cry. My body moved before my mind agreed. I crossed the lot with my coat pulled tight, sneakers splashing through cold puddles, heart beating so hard it made the rain sound far away. The SUV was expensive, too clean, too dark, the kind of car that did not belong behind a public elementary school after hours. The trunk was not fully latched. I lifted it 3 inches, just enough to see a boy curled inside, wrists bound with a soft cloth, cheeks wet, eyes wide and terrified. He could not have been older than 8. A silver bracelet circled his wrist. One name flashed under the parking lot light: Ethan Blackwood. I did not know then that his father owned half the city's silence. I only knew this boy was shaking, and my daughter was waiting at home, and if someone had found Sophie like this, I would have begged the world to stop looking away. I reached for the cloth around his wrists with fingers that would not stop shaking. "Do not move too fast," I whispered, though I was not sure if I was talking to him or myself. "I am going to get you out." The boy nodded once. No sound. Just those wide gray-blue eyes locked on mine like I was the only solid thing left in the world. The cloth came loose after 3 desperate pulls. I lifted him out of the trunk, and he weighed almost nothing against me. All sharp elbows, wet hair, and silent panic. "Can you run?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "I think so." His voice broke on the last word, and something inside me folded. I took his hand. Then we run on 3. We did not make it to 3. Headlights swept across the fence. A dark sedan rolled into the lot, slow and searching, tires hissing over wet asphalt. 2 men stepped out beneath black umbrellas. They were dressed too well for the weather and moved with the calm of people who expected the world to make room for them. I pulled Ethan behind the school bus so fast his shoes scraped the pavement. "Listen to me," I breathed. "You stay low, you do not cry, and whatever happens, you hold on to my coat." He nodded again, pressing both fists into the back of my jacket. My old bus suddenly looked enormous, yellow paint glowing dull under the rain. I opened the rear emergency door, pushed Ethan inside, and guided him beneath the last row of seats. From my tote bag, I grabbed Sophie's purple hoodie and draped it over him. It smelled like strawberry shampoo and crayons. "That is my daughter's," I whispered. "She says it is lucky." His small fingers caught the sleeve. "Thank you." The two men were closer now. I could hear one of them calling a name that did not belong to them. "Ethan, come on out, buddy." The sweetness in his voice made my stomach turn cold. I stepped down from the bus and shut the emergency door with my hip, forcing my face into the blank expression I used on rude customers at the diner. One man shined a flashlight toward me. "Ma'am, we are looking for a little boy. Our nephew. He got scared and ran off." My mouth went dry. Rain slid down my cheeks like tears I refused to give them. I pointed toward the main road, away from the bus, away from the shaking child under the seat. "A boy ran that way 5 minutes ago," I said. "Blue jacket? Fast?" I thought his parents were behind him. The men looked at each other. For one terrible second, nobody moved. Then the taller one smiled without warmth. "You should go home. Bad night to be alone." I smiled back, even though my knees felt hollow. I was just thinking the same thing. They left in a hurry, their sedan turning toward the road. I waited until their taillights vanished before I climbed behind the wheel. Ethan crawled out from under the seat, still clutching Sophie's hoodie. "Where are we going?" he asked. I started the engine, hands tight on the wheel. Somewhere with lights, coffee, and a phone that still works. Then I drove the school bus into the rain like the whole city was chasing us. Miller's Diner sat between a closed laundromat and a pawn shop with a flickering neon sign. The kind of place truckers, night nurses, and lonely people trusted because the coffee was strong and nobody asked too many questions. I parked the school bus behind the building, killed the headlights, and listened to the engine tick in the rain. Ethan sat 2 rows behind me, wrapped in Sophie's purple hoodie, staring at the floor like it might open and swallow him. "My friend owns this place," I said softly. "Her name is Donna. She has a loud voice, a baseball bat under the counter, and the best pancakes in 3 counties. His eyes lifted a little. "Pancakes only if you survive her questions." It was the first almost smile I saw from him, small and gone too quickly. But it kept my hands from falling apart as I led him through the back door. The kitchen smelled like grease, maple syrup, and burnt toast. Donna Price looked up from the grill, gray hair pinned high, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. "Claire, why are you bringing a school bus to my back alley like you robbed a field trip?" Then she saw Ethan. Her face changed, not slowly, all at once. "Office," she said, no questions after that. That was why I loved her. I sat Ethan on the old sofa beside the filing cabinet and gave him a paper cup of water. He held it with both hands. Donna locked the front door, flipped the sign to closed, and handed me the landline. My cell phone was dead. Of course it was. I dialed 911, then stopped before the last one. Ethan watched me. They told me not to call police. He whispered. My thumb froze over the button. "Who told you that?" He looked down at his bracelet. "The men. They said if police came, my dad would know someone inside betrayed him." The words were too big for his mouth, too heavy for a child in a borrowed hoodie. Before I could answer, headlights washed across the diner windows. Not one pair, 4. Black vehicles rolled to the curb and stopped in perfect silence. Donna reached under the counter. I stepped in front of Ethan before I even realized I had moved. The bell over the front door chimed once, though Donna had locked it. A man entered like the storm had opened the door for him. Tall, dark coat, gray suit, black leather gloves. rain shining on his shoulders but not touching his composure. Behind him, 3 men waited outside, still as statues beneath the neon glow. The diner went colder. His eyes found Ethan first, and for half a second the man disappeared. Only a father remained. Then his gaze moved to me, standing between him and his son with a butter knife in my hand, because it was the closest thing I could grab. "Move," he said, quiet enough to be polite and dangerous enough to empty the air from my lungs. I tightened my grip. "Not until I know you are safe for him." Donna stopped breathing behind me. Ethan made a small sound. The man's expression did not change, but something behind his eyes shifted, like a locked door recognizing the wrong key. "I am his father," he said. "Then act like it," I whispered, for 1 second. Nobody in that diner moved. The rain tapped against the windows. The coffee machine hissed behind the counter. Donna's hand stayed hidden beneath the register, and Ethan stood behind me so close I could feel the tremble in his breath. The man in the gray suit looked at me as if I had done something impossible. Not because I was holding a butter knife, not because I was blocking his path, but because I had spoken to him like he was just a man. "What did you say?" His voice stayed low, controlled. The kind of quiet that made shouting feel childish. I swallowed, my throat dry enough to hurt. I said, "If you are his father, act like it. He is scared. Do not walk in here like he is a briefcase you misplaced." Donna made a tiny sound behind me, something between a prayer and a warning. The man's eyes sharpened. Then Ethan stepped around my coat. Just 1 step. His face was pale, his fingers twisted in Sophie's purple hoodie, but he looked straight at the man. "Dad." Everything changed. The man's shoulders lowered by less than an inch. But I saw it. The crack in the armor. The breath he had been holding. The pain he had trained his face not to show. He removed his gloves slowly, like he was afraid sudden movement might frighten his own child. "Ethan," he said, and for the first time, his voice sounded human. Ethan did not run to him. That was what broke my heart. He wanted to. I could see it in the way his knees shifted, in the way his eyes filled and refused to spill. But fear had taught him hesitation. The man saw it too. A shadow passed across his face. He crouched down right there on the cracked tile floor, expensive suit and all, until he was eye level with his son. "I am here," he said. "You are safe now." Ethan looked at me, asking without words. I nodded once. Only then did he cross the room. His father caught him gently, not with the force I expected from a man like that, but like Ethan was made of glass and memory. He closed his eyes for half a second. I looked away because some things felt too private to witness, even in a diner at midnight with rain crawling down the windows. When the moment ended, the man stood, one hand resting on Ethan's shoulder. "Who are you?" he asked me. "Claire Whitman. You pulled my son out of that vehicle." "Yes." "You lied to the men looking for him." "Yes." "You brought him here instead of calling the police." I glanced at Ethan. He said not to. The man looked down at his son, then back at me. Smart. I did not know if he meant Ethan or me. He reached inside his coat. I stiffened, but he only pulled out a cream-colored envelope, thick enough to change someone's life before it was even opened. He placed it on the counter. "For your trouble." I stared at it. Rent, utilities, Sophie's overdue dentist bill, a full refrigerator, maybe even sleep. For 1 weak second, I wanted it so badly my eyes burned. Then I pushed it back toward him. "Buy him a night without fear." I said, "That is what he needs." The man did not touch the envelope. He just stared at me, and in the cold blue weight of his gaze, I felt something shift. Not gratitude. Not yet. Something more dangerous. Attention. He told me his name before he left, but not the way normal people introduce themselves. One of the men outside opened the diner door and said, "Mr. Blackwood. The second team is waiting." Blackwood. The name moved through the room like a cold draft. I had heard it before in whispers over counter stools and late-night news reports that never said enough to explain why everyone suddenly lowered their voices. Adrian Blackwood did not look at the man who had spoken. He kept his eyes on me. "You should not go home tonight, Miss Whitman." I almost laughed, because fear sometimes came out sounding rude. I have a 5-year-old daughter sleeping at my neighbor's apartment, and a life that does not pause because powerful men walk into diners. Ethan looked up at the word daughter. "The hoodie," he whispered. "It is hers." His fingers tightened around the purple sleeve. That small movement softened me more than any envelope of money could have. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. Men like him did not survive by missing details. "Then your daughter is already part of this," he said. The sentence landed wrong. I stepped closer, anger cutting clean through exhaustion. "No. My daughter is part of nothing. She is in kindergarten. She likes strawberry cereal and cartoons and putting stickers on my electric bill. Do not speak about her like she is a piece on your board." His jaw tightened. Behind him, one of his men shifted, but Adrian raised 2 fingers without looking, and the man went still. That was the first time I understood his power. He did not need volume. He did not need threats. The room obeyed him before he finished breathing. "The people who took Ethan saw you," he said. "They saw your bus. They may have your plate number. If they know you protected him, they will look for leverage." I hated that word. Leverage. It made human beings sound like tools. "Then I will call the police." Adrian's expression did not change, but Donna's did. She looked away too fast. "The police are not all clean in this city," he said. "And whoever arranged this knew my son's schedule down to the minute. That information did not come from a stranger." Ethan's face went pale again. I lowered my voice. "Someone close to you." Adrian looked at his son, and the silence that followed felt heavier than an answer. Then Ethan reached into the pocket of Sophie's hoodie and pulled out a small white chess piece. "A king." "They dropped this in the car," he whispered. "The man with the nice voice had one on his keychain." Adrian took it carefully. His eyes changed. Not wider, not louder. Colder. "Malcolm," he said. The name meant nothing to me then, but it meant something to every man outside that door. Phones came out. Engines started. The night shifted. Adrian looked back at me. "You are not safe anymore." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him I had survived landlords, overdue notices, double shifts, fevers, loneliness, and every impossible Tuesday a single mother knows by heart. But the white chess king sat in his palm, and Ethan was still wearing my daughter's hoodie. So when Adrian Blackwood said, "I am taking you to get your daughter," I heard the command in it, and I hated myself a little for also hearing protection. We left Miller's Diner through the back door because Adrian said the front windows gave too many angles to the street. I did not ask what he meant. Some sentences carried enough darkness without being opened. Donna hugged me hard beside the walk-in freezer. One hand pressed to the back of my head like I was still 17 and crying over a bad tip. "You call me the second you can," she whispered. I promised. Though neither of us believed promises had much power that night, Adrian's vehicle was not a car. It was a moving wall of black glass, warm leather, and silence. Ethan sat beside his father but leaned toward me. That told me more than any speech could have. Adrian noticed that too. His face gave away nothing, but his hand flexed once on his knee. My apartment building was 12 minutes away on a normal night. We made it in 6. Not because the driver sped, but because every red light seemed to turn green before we reached it. Outside Mrs. Alvarez's door, my hands finally started shaking. Not in the parking lot, not at the diner. There, in a hallway that smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner, with Sophie sleeping on the other side. Mrs. Alvarez opened after the first knock, robe tied crooked, eyes sharp with worry. Claire. Then she saw Adrian behind me, and her voice disappeared. "It is okay," I said quickly, though nothing about it was okay. "I need to take Sophie for the night." My little girl was asleep on the couch under a quilt, one hand tucked beneath her cheek, curls stuck to her forehead. For a second, the whole night bent around her. The black vehicles, the boy in the trunk, the white chess king, Adrian Blackwood standing in the doorway like a storm wearing a suit. None of it mattered, only Sophie's soft breathing. I knelt and touched her shoulder. "Baby, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open. "Mommy, we are going on a little trip." She sat up, confused, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Is it morning?" "Not yet." Adrian remained outside the apartment, giving us space without being asked. That surprised me. Men used to power usually filled every room they entered. He stood in the hall, looking away while I packed 2 shirts, Sophie's toothbrush, her inhaler, and the folder with our birth certificates because mothers think of paperwork even when fear is holding their lungs shut. When we stepped out, Sophie looked at Ethan. He still wore her purple hoodie. "That is mine," she said sleepily. Ethan looked down, embarrassed. "Sorry." Sophie yawned. "You can borrow it if you are scared." His eyes filled again, but he nodded. Adrian watched the exchange like he had forgotten children could save each other with 6 simple words. Downstairs, the city felt too quiet. Just before I got into the vehicle, I looked back at my building. 3rd floor, peeling paint. One window that never closed right. A life I had complained about every day and suddenly wanted with my whole heart. Adrian opened the door for Sophie, then for me. "Where are we going?" I asked. His answer came without hesitation. "Somewhere no one can reach you." I should have felt trapped. Instead, as Sophie curled against my side and Ethan sat across from us holding the white chess king, I felt the terrible comfort of a cage built to keep danger out. Blackwood House stood behind iron gates on a hill above the city, not glowing so much as watching. The driveway curved through dark trees slick with rain, past cameras hidden under stone angels and men in coats who spoke into their sleeves without moving their mouths. Sophie pressed her nose to the window. "Is this a hotel?" she whispered. "No, baby," I said, though I was not sure what it was. A mansion, a fortress, a place built by someone who believed beauty and fear could share the same address. Inside, the floors were white marble, the walls were lined with paintings, and every light seemed dimmed on purpose, as if even the house had learned not to disturb Adrian Blackwood. A woman in a navy dress appeared with towels, warm blankets, and the kind of calm that comes from being paid very well to notice everything and react to nothing. "Mrs. Vale," Adrian said. "2 rooms near Ethan's. Whatever they need." I corrected him before I could stop myself. "1 room." His eyes turned to me. "You and your daughter would be more comfortable separately." "My daughter sleeps where I sleep." The silence stretched. Then he nodded once. 1 room. That small victory should not have mattered, but it did. It reminded me my voice still belonged to me. "Mrs. Vale led us upstairs to a bedroom larger than my apartment, with a fireplace, thick curtains, and a bed so wide Sophie gasped. She forgot to be afraid for exactly 3 seconds, running her hand over the soft blue blanket. Then Ethan appeared in the doorway, still holding the white chess king. "Can Sophie have dinner?" he asked his father. "Not Mrs. Vale. Not me." Adrian looked surprised by the question, as if Ethan had spoken in a language he had not heard in years. "Of course. Can she have pancakes?" Sophie turned bright-eyed. For dinner, I started to say no out of habit, out of budget, out of the tired rules that keep poor mothers from letting joy get too expensive. Adrian looked at Mrs. Vale. Pancakes. 10 minutes later, we were in a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, with copper pans, warm lights, and 2 children sitting at the island while a private chef made pancakes at midnight. Sophie told Ethan about her rabbit, Mr. Buttons. Ethan told her almost nothing, but he listened like her small stories were important. Adrian stood near the doorway, phone in hand, eyes on his son, not on the calls coming in, not on the men waiting beyond the glass, on Ethan. "You can sit," I said quietly. He glanced at me. "I am fine." "That is not what I said." His mouth tightened, but after a moment, he crossed the kitchen and sat beside his son. Ethan looked startled, then pleased, then unsure what to do with pleased. That hurt more than fear. The chef placed pancakes in front of them, golden and steaming, with butter melting into little yellow rivers. Sophie poured too much syrup. Ethan smiled at that. A real smile, small, crooked, gone fast, but real. Adrian saw it, and the room changed again. Not colder this time. Softer, after the children finished eating. Sophie grew heavy against my side, and Ethan kept blinking like sleep was pulling him under. Adrian reached for his son's shoulder, then stopped halfway, asking permission without words. Ethan leaned into him. "Just a little. Enough. Later, as Mrs. Vale guided the children upstairs. I stood in the kitchen with Adrian and the smell of pancakes still warm in the air. "You built him a fortress," I said. "But you forgot to build him a home." His eyes did not leave the doorway where Ethan had disappeared. For the first time since I met him, Adrian Blackwood had no answer. The next morning arrived without sunlight. Gray rain pressed against the tall windows, turning the city below into a blur of rooftops, traffic lights, and secrets. I woke in a bed too soft to trust, with Sophie curled against my ribs and one small hand gripping my shirt. For a few seconds, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the fireplace, the heavy curtains, the silent camera above the garden wall outside, and remembered everything. Ethan, the trunk, Adrian Blackwood, the white chess king. Sophie woke hungry, because children can carry fear and still ask for cereal like the world has not cracked open. Mrs. Vale brought breakfast on a silver tray, and I hated how grateful I felt for warm toast and clean clothes folded at the end of the bed. The jeans fit. The sweater fit. Even Sophie's shoes fit. That frightened me more than the guards. Someone had learned our sizes before we opened our eyes. Downstairs, the house was moving without noise. Men crossed hallways with phones pressed to their ears. A printer hummed in a study. Names and addresses appeared on papers, then disappeared into black folders. Adrian stood at the center of it all, sleeves rolled to his forearms, tie gone, face carved from sleepless restraint. He was not loud. He did not have to be. People leaned closer when he spoke, as if his quiet carried more weight than another man's shout. Ethan sat at the dining table with Sophie, building a crooked tower out of sugar packets. I watched Adrian watch them. every few seconds. His eyes returned to his son, checking, counting, making sure he was still there. "You have not slept," I said. "Neither have you. I am a mother. That is different." His gaze shifted to me, and something almost like regret passed through it. "Yes," he said softly. "It is." Before I could answer, one of his men entered with a tablet. We found the school camera feed. It was deleted from the main server, but copied to the maintenance backup. Adrian took the tablet. His face did not change, but the room seemed to tighten around him. He turned the screen toward me. "Do you recognize him?" The video was grainy. Rain blurred the lens. A man stood near the black SUV, holding an umbrella low over his face. Then he turned slightly, just enough for the light to catch his profile. My stomach dropped. I saw him on the news. I whispered, "A lawyer, big trial downtown." He had that same silver tie clip. Adrian's jaw locked. Malcolm Pierce. Ethan's sugar packet tower collapsed. The sound was tiny, but every adult in the room heard it. Adrian lowered the tablet. For the first time, he looked less like a king and more like a man betrayed inside his own walls. "He knew Ethan's route," I said. "He knew your people. He knew you would blame enemies outside your house." Adrian looked at the white chess king on the table. "No," he said quietly. "He knew I would blame myself." By noon, Blackwood House no longer felt like a mansion. It felt like a command center wrapped in marble and silence. Adrian's people moved through the halls with controlled urgency, carrying files, murmuring into phones, checking camera feeds from every street around the hill. Sophie and Ethan had been moved to the library, where Mrs. Vale gave them coloring books and hot chocolate with too many marshmallows. I stayed close enough to see the door, close enough to hear Sophie laugh if she forgot to be afraid. Adrian stood beside a long table covered in photographs, maps, and printed schedules, school pickup times, security rotations, phone records, every piece of his life laid out like evidence against him. I watched his face as Malcolm Pierce's name appeared again and again. Lawyer, friend, advisor, godfather on Ethan's school emergency form. The betrayal was not loud. It was worse than loud. It was familiar. "How long has he been with you?" I asked. Adrian did not look up. 15 years. Then he knows everything. Yes. His answer was calm, but his hand rested near the white chess king like it was the only thing keeping him anchored. I thought of Ethan in that trunk. I thought of Sophie offering him her hoodie. I thought of the way fear travels through children and becomes part of their bones if adults do not stop it early enough. "You need to get Ethan out of here," I said. Adrian's eyes lifted. "This is the safest place in the city." "No. It is the place Malcolm knows best." The room went still. One of his men stopped mid-sentence. Adrian studied me, not offended, not dismissive, listening. That scared me too. How quickly his attention could make a person feel seen and trapped at the same time. "What would you do?" he asked. Nobody had asked me that in years. Not landlords, not managers, not the men who decided schedules and rent and overdue fees. I looked down at the map. "I would make him believe you are protecting the obvious doors while you leave through one he forgot exists." Adrian's mouth did not smile, but something in his eyes warmed for half a second. "The service tunnel," he said to one of his men, "under the East Garden." The man nodded and left. Adrian turned back to me. "You noticed what my own security team missed. I drive children through bad neighborhoods for a living. I notice exits. Ethan appeared in the doorway then, small and pale. Sophie beside him clutching Mr. Buttons. "Are we leaving?" he asked. Adrian crossed the room slowly and knelt in front of him. This time, he did not hesitate. He took Ethan's hands gently. "Yes, and I am coming with you." Ethan stared at him as if those were the bravest words he had ever heard. Behind us. A phone rang. Adrian's man answered, listened, and went white. "Mr. Blackwood," he said. "Pierce knows she is here." Adrian looked at me. In that look, I saw the whole city darken.